The words hit me like a thunderclap on a quiet morning. My wife stood in the kitchen, her hands trembling slightly as she held a white pregnancy test. Sunlight from the window behind her lit up the small plastic stick like a spotlight on a stage, as if the universe itself wanted me to see it clearly. "You're going to be a father again," she said. For a moment, the world went completely silent. The ticking clock on the wall seemed to stop. The coffee I had just poured went cold in my hands. My heart pounded slowly, heavily, like something inside me already knew what my mind was refusing to accept. Because the truth was simple. Strange, I hadn't touched my wife in months. Before we continue, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the complicated beauty of human relationships, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who loves emotional stories, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us how fragile and powerful love can be. My name is Michael Carter, and until that moment in our small house in Portland, Oregon, I thought my marriage was simply going through a quiet, difficult season. My wife, Rachel Carter, and I had been married for 9 years. We had a 6-year-old son named Oliver, a golden retriever named Max, and what most people from the outside would call a normal American life. But the truth was far more complicated. About 7 months earlier, something in our marriage had changed. Not suddenly, not dramatically, just slowly, like a light dimming in a room you spend too much time in to notice. Rachel had become distant. She worked later hours at the marketing firm downtown. She spent more time on her phone. Conversations between us grew shorter, colder. Nights that used to end with laughter and quiet closeness became silent hours on opposite sides of the bed. At first I blamed stress, then exhaustion, then myself. Maybe I had stopped trying hard enough. Maybe being a father and working long hours as an architect had turned me into someone dull, someone predictable. But even with the distance growing between us, one thing remained certain: we hadn't been intimate in months, which is why standing there in the kitchen, staring at that pregnancy test, felt like standing on the edge of a cliff I didn't even know existed. Rachel watched my face carefully. Her eyes searched mine as if trying to read what storm was forming inside my chest. And there was a storm. Confusion, hurt, fear, and a quiet, terrifying question I didn't want to ask. Instead of shouting or accusing, I simply placed the coffee mug on the counter and sat down slowly at the kitchen table, because sometimes the loudest pain doesn't scream, it whispers. The days that followed were some of the longest of my life. Rachel insisted the pregnancy was real. Her doctor confirmed it, every detail checked out medically. But the math didn't make sense. Every night I lay awake staring at the ceiling fan spinning slowly above our bed, wondering if the life I thought I had built was quietly collapsing around me. Yet something strange kept bothering me. Rachel wasn't acting guilty. She wasn't defensive. If anything, she seemed nervous. Not like someone hiding a secret, but like someone terrified of being misunderstood. Still, the distance between us grew thicker with every passing day. At work, I found myself staring at unfinished blueprints, unable to concentrate. My coworkers asked if I was okay, and I gave the same empty smile everyone gives when they don't want to explain their broken heart. At home, Oliver continued being his joyful, energetic self. He ran through the house with toy dinosaurs, begged me to play soccer in the backyard, and asked when his baby brother or sister would arrive. Hearing that question felt like someone twisting a knife gently but repeatedly in my chest. One evening, about 2 weeks after the pregnancy announcement, I came home earlier than usual. The house was quiet. Oliver was at my sister's place for the night. Rachel's car was in the driveway. I stepped inside and heard soft crying coming from the living room. Rachel sat on the couch, holding a small folder in her hands, medical papers. When she saw me, she looked like someone who had been carrying a secret for far too long. And in that moment, something inside me shifted. Instead of anger, I felt something else. Concern. She looked exhausted, not guilty, not defensive, just tired. Slowly, she handed me the folder. Inside were test results, hospital reports, and something that made my heart stop. A fertility clinic evaluation from 6 months earlier. I looked up at her, confused. That's when Rachel finally told me the truth she had been too afraid to say out loud. Months ago, she had gone to the doctor for severe abdominal pain. During those tests, doctors discovered something unexpected, a rare hormonal condition, According to the doctors, Rachel had experienced a phenomenon called delayed implantation combined with an extremely slow hormone development cycle. In simpler words, the pregnancy had actually started months earlier, back when our marriage was still whole, back when we still held each other every night, back when love between us hadn't grown quiet and uncertain. The baby growing inside her was mine. The room felt like it tilted slightly as the weight of that realization settled over me. All those sleepless nights, all those dark assumptions, all that silent pain. Rachel had been carrying not only a child, but the fear that I would never believe her. Tears filled her eyes as she explained how scared she had been, how every day she wanted to tell me everything, but every time she saw the doubt in my face, the words froze in her throat. And in that moment, something inside me broke, not with anger, but with shame, because love is fragile. And sometimes fear makes us question the people we should trust the most. I sat beside her on the couch and, for the first time in months, held her hand. Her fingers were cold, but they tightened around mine like someone finally reaching solid ground after drifting at sea. Life didn't magically fix itself overnight. Trust, once shaken, needs time to rebuild. But slowly, the distance between us began to shrink. We started talking again, taking evening walks, laughing at Oliver's endless dinosaur facts. And for the first time in a long while, the house felt warm again. 7 months later, in a bright hospital room in Seattle, our daughter was born. Her name was Grace. She had Rachel's eyes and my stubborn little frown. When the nurse placed her in my arms, something deep inside my chest softened in a way I can barely explain. Because life has a strange way of testing the strength of love, and sometimes the hardest moments reveal the truth we were too afraid to see. Before the story ends, I want to ask you something special. If this story touched your heart even a little, please write in the comments, "Love deserves patience." Your words might remind someone out there not to give up too quickly on the people they care about. Today, our home is louder, messier, and happier than it has ever been. Oliver runs around proudly calling himself Big Brother. Rachel smiles more often than she used to, and baby Grace sleeps peacefully in a small crib beside our bed. Sometimes late at night when the house is quiet again, I think back to that morning in the kitchen, the pregnancy test, the silence, the